Hello, Ron here from L.T.L. Tutoring Central, and this is the third video in our Steps to Success series that we've been doing. And this week I'm talking about taking notes. Now don't panic. A lot of people panic when I start talking about taking notes, and I have done videos before and I've done blogs before about taking notes because it is so important and so many people ignore this step on the road to academic success, or learning success if you like. Now, one thing I want to mention before I move forward, if you're seeing this video and you didn't see the first and the second, go back and watch the first and the second and follow the steps in order, because what I want, it's not that all of these have to happen in this exact order, but it is useful to begin at the step 1 and step 2 and step 3 and practice each one at least for a few days. You could do it for a week, but at least a few days before you move on, because I want you to take the steps rather than trying to do everything at once. That was the whole purpose of doing this series, because often people become overwhelmed trying to do all of the study skills and strategies at once, and every year they have good intentions and every year they don't make it. So that was the idea of trying this a little bit more slowly. Now, taking notes. Again, don't panic, because you've been reading with intent. Remember last week. That week you were to be practicing reading with intent. Well, you've been reading a couple of paragraphs, and then you've been asking yourself questions about what you've just read. And you can just do this out loud or to yourself or in your mind if you're around people and don't want to be talking to yourself. I don't worry about it. So, but at any rate, that can form your notes. The answers to those questions can form the basis of your notes. Now, you don't have to write a note for all of your answers to the questions. Some of those can just be oral, just be thinking. You're thinking about the topic, and that's the idea of reading with intent. So there is a bit of a difference between reading with intent and taking notes, but there's also a connection. So the answers to those questions, you take the salient or the most important bits of information or answers, and that becomes your set of notes. You want to write that down. In addition to writing down sort of the factual information, you also can add your own thoughts to this information, and those thoughts might change as you continue reading, and that's fine. But what that does is it engages you with the material. It makes you think even more about what you're reading and what you're learning, because you're now involved in it. And at first, maybe you disagree. I don't think that's true. And then as you go on, maybe you'll say, well, you know, parts of this seem to make sense to me, and this is the part that does make sense, and this part doesn't make sense. You're already teaching yourself. If this is an academic course in which you'll have to answer questions or you'll have to write an essay, you will have a really strong basis or foundation for doing that, because you have already given a lot of thought to what you're learning. And this is important. Many people, and I don't leave myself out of this, sometimes I'm in a rush, and you read ahead and you're not really reading with intent. You're not understanding everything you're reading. You're not taking notes, and it does make it more difficult. You may do well, but you didn't do as well as you could if you had done the steps, and if you had thought more about the material, or if you had had more time. Sometimes we just don't have time because everything is rushed. I understand that, but do your best to take some notes. Leave a little space, after each note, so that you can add information if you hear new information during the lecture, or if you're reading another text or watching a video, movie, anything that might add to your knowledge, and you can put that information in a logical location within your notes so that it's just not tacked on at the end. That's okay too. You can also use a number system. I used to do that sometimes. If I didn't have enough space left and I had to put something at the end that really belongs 3 pages back, I could put a little star and a number and put a star and a number so that I could connect those together. There are many ways, many things you can do to make those connections, but leaving a little space will help. So this week I want you to go back to some of the articles you read last week, perhaps, And this time, read them again. It's good to reread anyways. You should always read material more than once if you have the time, if you have that possibility. Remember, if it's a novel, you can read a whole chapter before you take notes, probably, unless they're really, really long chapters. But normally you can get a chapter in and then take the most important information down. The reason for that is you don't want to be taking too many notes. And if you're doing academic reading texts, some students take notes every sentence or every couple of sentences, and basically they just end up rewriting the entire text, which is not useful. Your notes are supposed to be shorter, easier to handle, abbreviated in ways that you can use for studying purposes to make your life easier. Copying the entire textbook doesn't make your life any easier, and I have seen students highlight the entire textbook. So except for, you know, they leave button because out, but everything else is highlighted. That's not very useful. You have to reread everything again. But reread these texts, these shorter texts that you did last week. If you didn't do it, you can start now, or you can pick some new ones from, as I mentioned before, different sites, and they're in the blog this week. L.T.L, ReadWorks, Common Lit. There's other sites too. I have no necessary preference, but find something that interests you, and some of these are easy to do a search on a particular topic that you like or difficulty level that you feel you can handle. And practice reading with intent still, because that continues on. All of these steps continue forever, and taking a few notes. Read a couple of paragraphs and then take a note or two. And if you have any ideas about that section, put your own ideas down too. Don't forget to do that, because you need to be involved in your education. You need to be a part of it. It is for you, after all. Okay, that's it for this week. Take some notes, continue reading with intent, and continue to commit yourself to improving your learning. No matter how wonderful you already are, we can all improve. I work on it every day, and I have to remind myself to do these steps too sometimes, so don't worry about it. It's Ron from L.T.L Tutoring. Don't forget to subscribe or like the video. It really helps. It helps me, and it helps keep this going. And if you have any questions or comments, you can put them below the video. If you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're reading the blog, you can put it into my website. I'm sorry if some people have put comments on the website before. Things were not working, but I think everything is working now. So I caught up on a lot of messages from previous weeks, but everything's working now. Ron from L.T.L Tutoring Central. See you next week. Bye-bye.